Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jimmy. As Jimmy said, my name is Jerry Chan. I work at SBI Bits, and we are a fintech company based in Tokyo. And I'm an ex-Wall Street technologist and turned Bitcoiner. And my role, although officially at SBI, is Chief Digital Asset Solutions Officer. People usually just call me the Chief Bitcoin Officer. So today I'm going to talk a little about settling our way, moving into this new crypto new world, and the movement from FinTech 1 and FinTech 1.0 to a FinTech 2.0 world. And what does that mean? So FinTech 1.0 is, thanks to Jimmy, he illustrated it quite well this morning, is basically e-commerce, right? The advent of the internet brought about these new businesses, which allowed merchants to move all their commerce onto the internet. And all these satellite industries popped up around it. And of course, all of these companies that we know and love, these tech giants, basically became the industry leaders of this new movement. Amazon, Alibaba, Rakuten in Japan, Yahoo also primarily in Japan. But then sometime along in 2009, a small 9-page white paper found its way into a small cypherpunk forum, and that changed everything. And that began our process of moving from FinTech 1.0 to this world of FinTech 2.0, or as Jimmy aptly put it, BCommerce, or blockchain commerce. So what's SBI Group? You probably never heard of us because we're primarily active in Asia and mostly in Japan, but we do have operations in Thailand and Southeast Asia. We are a financial services conglomerate, but we do also have companies in biotech and AI and such. And our chairman, Yoshitaka Kitao-san, his vision is really to build ecosystems. And as SBI Group was probably credited as heralding in the age of e-commerce, or FinTech 1.0 in Japan at least, he's taken it upon himself to expand that vision and help lead the innovation into FinTech 2.0, or the world of BCommerce. And he said it to himself in many of his the shareholder reports that right now we're in the stage of FinTech 1.5, which is e-commerce with AI and big data, and moving to FinTech 2.0, which is really innovative financial solutions which have at its core blockchain technology driving it. And what does that mean? For those of us in this room, that means that not only are we using blockchain, but we're using a blockchain which is useful. And for a blockchain to be useful, of course, it has to be money. So this is the obligatory slide where I just show you that we've invested a lot of money in blockchain technologies. I'm not going to go over that. It's more like tooting our own horn. But this is a little old, so don't blame us. I think we're still first, but this year we've invested about $300 million into companies such as this, and we're beating out Google. I think we're the largest in corporate investments. And this is just our investment portfolio at large of the whole fintech industry. And that's just that's kind of like what the SBI Holding Group does. But today we're going to talk about, how do we get from where we are now to this new world of BCommerce, or FinTech 2.0. And I hearken it likely to be similar to what the early explorers discovering the new world probably felt like. And it's very much like the early explorers to North America. There's a lot of potential and there's a lot of possibilities in discovering this new world, this new country, right? But of course, discovering a new country requires a map, and so I'm going to basically I want to describe to you the roadmap of this new industry, this new revolution that we're part of, this whole BCommerce and all the sectors as part of it. So since this is a CoinGeek Conference, how many of you among the audience consider yourself geeks? Okay, that's good. That's good. All right, how many of you are gamers? All right, more than in Korea. I did this talk first in Korea. Board gamers? Okay, you guys are the true geeks. The true geeks. All right. The next slide is basically my previous presentations, what I've done before, and I won't bore you again if you've seen it, all in one slide. And basically, this is the world of BCommerce, right? And we've divided it, or I've divided it into sectors, which those of you geeky among us will recognize as tiles of Catan, and basically SBI's roadmap through this territory. And I won't go too much into the details of this because that's another presentation, but just to go very briefly through it, we start at brokerages, which is virtual currencies and exchanges, like NASDAQ-like exchanges, remittances, which was spoken to some points earlier on some talks. It's very important. Mining is a very, very important sector of this new country because mining is really just how transactions are settled. And then settlement, clearing, and custodial, very, very important in undeveloped sectors of the space, which we have projects in, and you can probably find me later and ask me about if you really want to know. And the most interesting part is the fact that we will eventually move into basically par with the current financial technology, fintech industry, and have like futures and derivatives so that participants in the economy can hedge the risk for like mining and et cetera. But one thing that you'll note here that SBI doesn't really do anything in is that one tile in the middle, retail commerce, which is the reason why you all are here today. And so I think it's a very, very important sector of this ecosystem. And to speak a little bit about that, to talk about retail commerce, I'm going to have to bore you a little bit and go into a little monetary theory. I apologize. So apart from the other talks, this is a little bit of Econ 101. I apologize. This is what I call like the money triangle. So the triangle is basically describing the uses of money, right? At the bottom, you have like the hodlers and the numismatics, people who collect coins because they're pretty and they're old and they're collectible, right? The tier above that is retail commerce, which is what we're talking about. Tier above that is B2B payments, right? Businesses paying other businesses, and global remittance. Above that, salaries, right? When you get remunerated in crypto or money. And above that would be payments in sovereign debt, right? And governments actually using it. Now, the interesting thing is that as you move up this pyramid, right, the transaction sizes go up, obviously, right? Because the sovereigns move billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, where the hodlers and the people who just move coins around, they're doing small transactions. And Bitcoin handles this quite well. Because Bitcoin has a flat fee structure, it's not like it's a percentage of your transaction size, right? And so basically that's Bitcoin. And when I mean Bitcoin, I mean the old Bitcoin. But the other thing that a lot of folks don't think about is that in order for you to have a sustainable, in order for the money to be fully proliferated and used throughout this whole triangle, throughout the use cases, you're going to need to go the other way, which is that as basically you go down the pyramid, the number of transactions go up, right? And this is something that only Bitcoin Cash can handle. And this is actually one of the reasons, from my background in financial technology and Wall Street for 14 years, I realized that if you can't do this, if you can't basically treat the people who do a lot of small transactions exactly the same as the people at the top doing one very large transaction, then it's not really going to be the same money for everybody. It's not going to be a universal money. It's not going to be an equitable money. Then why bother? Then you might as well just reinvent a different version of SWIFT or interbank payments or something, which is interesting in its own worth, in its own light. But for a global money, you want it to be fair. All right. So that's basically the goal. I mean, that really just summarizes why Bitcoin Cash is interesting to us, right? And should be interesting to us as a global, stateless, equitable money. But okay, what about the detractors? What about digital gold, right? Right now, I forgot to mention, we're right about there. We're in the bottom tier. We have a lot of hodlers in all cryptos, all types. That's what ICOs are about. And then we're trying to move into the second tier of usage, right? So what about digital gold, as I mentioned? A lot of people say that Bitcoin should be digital gold, and gold is great. And they fail to remember that gold was not always a store value, right? Gold is where it is today because gold was originally a medium of exchange, right? It was a medium of exchange originally, like back in Roman days, or even probably as late as the Medici banking era of like Venice in 1500s. The reason why the gold is where it is now is because it was a medium of exchange. If you tried to use a store value, as a medium of exchange, i.e. you're going to use a lump of gold to pay for something, you're probably going to get a barista that looks at you like that, right? When it's like, what do you want me to do with this? Do you want change in this? Am I supposed to shave off a couple of flakes? So that's kind of like such a wrong way of thinking of it. The problem is gold today is actually more of a sentimental store of value. It has more numismatic value. It also has jewelry value and some other practical electrical properties. But the problem here is that if you're going to treat gold, you're going to use that as an analogy, then you have to remember that the analogy you should be referring to is gold as a medium of exchange, right? And the whole use of this store of value coin, right, basically using store value of money, is just a broken idea. And I'm not just making this up. This has been attempted. There has been a use case in human society, in anthropological history, where a society, an economy, was using a store of value as a medium of exchange. Does anybody know? Anybody have a guess? Great. I'm going to say this is going to be something new that you're going to learn today. It's actually the island of Yap, right? In the island of Yap, a small Micronesian island off the coast of Palau or something around there, they used these giant rocks that they would paddle across the island, like dig out of the ground, drill a hole through the middle, bring it back, and that would mean that you could buy a wife or some cows or something. And then passing along this money, you didn't actually pass it around. You just left it wherever you dropped it on the beach. You just basically tell everybody that rock now Bob owns it. Everybody, Bob owns my rock. All right, everybody got that? Okay. And then if Bob wanted to give it to somebody else, he would just tell everybody else that Bob no longer owns it, Alice owns the rock. And that works when your population is like 10,000 people on a deserted island, well, not deserted, but an island in the middle of the Pacific. But what does that remind you of? Does anybody? Yeah, Lightning, payment channels. That kind of makes you think of the payment channel model, doesn't it? Basically, just changing ownership of something that never moves. So I think that's a broken model. But let's talk. Oh, right. So Bitcoin is only something if it's cash, right? If it's cash. And remember, there was an equation at the top of the pyramid, which I didn't explain because you guys kind of like glossed over when I said like Econ 101. But that's the quantity theory of money, which states that the value is equal on both sides. M is the monetary base, how many coins are in the ecosystem. V is the velocity of money, equals P, which is the price index of the things you're buying, and T is the total real value of the transactions, right? And that's kind of the key, actually, because in Bitcoin, M is fixed, 21 million, that's it. 21 million is fixed. So if the velocity money doesn't go up, if the number of transactions in Bitcoins doesn't go up, then you will never be able to support larger and larger real value transactions or larger price if you're a speculator. But so that's kind of very, very important. So let's go back to gold for a second. What about physical gold in its comparison to Bitcoin, right? This is another thing that the digital gold proponents always miss. What is it about gold that makes it so great that it became a store of value? Well, it's simple. Gold is a thing. It has a physical form. I can carry that lump, that nugget, anywhere on planet Earth, and I can guarantee you 99% of the time I will be able to buy something with it, right? I didn't have to teach that person what gold is or why it's valuable or nothing. They would just accept it because there's just something inherently magical about the sheen, about the color, about the heaviness of it. Who knows? But it's built into our genes, apparently, that that's valuable. So gold got that for free. And because gold got that for free, it became used as a medium of exchange. And because people started using it enough, and they needed to do bigger and bigger transactions, they found it useful to melt these things down to a block. And then once you got a block, then it became a store of value, right? Bitcoin is just digital numbers. How the heck, nobody values digital numbers inherently. I mean, you are a geek if you do, and there are probably some people in the world who do, but you're never going to convince a rice farmer in Vietnam that that number is worth something, right? It just has no inherent intrinsic value. And so therefore, how does Bitcoin become a medium of exchange if it doesn't have this intrinsic form that gold has that appeals to every human on planet Earth? Well, Bitcoin needs to have these qualities which makes it a good medium of exchange. And of course, you've heard this 100 times in all the other talks, but those values are the fact that it is free, nearly free to transact, right? It's censorship resistant. It can treat all transaction sizes the same. And what those qualities give it and also the divisibility and all that other good stuff. What do those qualities and characteristics give Bitcoin is that it makes it universally acceptable. So now, instead of having an intrinsic form, pretty form that makes it universally acceptable, Bitcoin gets universal acceptability because of those characteristics. You eliminate those characteristics, Bitcoin is no longer universally acceptable, then you don't have a medium of exchange. And what do you think? You're going to get a store of value out of that? No, you're just going to get a bunch of USB sticks, right? Which people are going to collect and maybe it has some numismatic value someday where you can say that this is the original treasure that was printed or something like that. So anyhow, so that's basically why I believe that medium of exchange feature of Bitcoin is the most important. So what is this next step we need to take? Well, merchants, right? Retail commerce means retail merchants accepting it. So let's give some examples of how win-win these merchants should be able to, to get onto the Bitcoin. Well, let's take the case of a global traveler. BCommerce, the world of BCommerce, FinTech 2.0 is supposed to enable global commerce, global travel, global customers, right? And today, global customers have two things they can use when they travel, right? They can use cash or credit card, mostly two things, right? And so what does that mean? As a global traveler, you land in the country, you probably all are not from Hong Kong, and if you landed here, what's the first thing you needed to do? You probably went to the TravelX or some sort of foreign exchange broker. They gave you a conversion rate, you put your cash in the pocket, and then you buy stuff here, right? Now the problem with that is well, we'll get into that, but there are problems with that. First of all, that there's already a middleman, right? The other method, which is credit cards, is similar, right? The credit cards is basically you carry a credit card around, they give you an exchange rate when you buy stuff. And so basically, the FX rate that you're actually applying, you're actually charged, is different from when the time you buy something, right? If your home currency fluctuates, like say you're from Venezuela, I guess, and your home currency is fluctuating a lot versus Hong Kong dollars, then you kind of care that when the time you buy that bottle of water, what it's worth in your home currency may have changed, right? So the FX rate is at a different time. You sometimes have more bills in your pocket than you know what to do with, and then you're at the airport, you're going to have to trade them in again and pay another spread. Or you don't have enough, and you have to find a bank somewhere, right? And so there's a whole bunch of problems. And credit cards, as merchants who accept credit cards know, you're going to be paying like 3 to 5%, depending on your business. And there's always the possibility of chargebacks, which is when clients get their money taken away from them because the customer reported a fraud or something like that. So that's the problem, right? But what about Bitcoin? If you were using Bitcoin in the world of the future, you would just carry around your Bitcoin in your phone, and basically you would pay the merchant. The merchant would then use a merchant processor, which thanks to today's presentation, I think we found a potential partner in South Africa, or BitPay and some other guys, will basically guarantee the exchange rate to the local tax currency, and then make sure that the merchant is taking no risk, right? Merchant can also additionally probably keep some of his the Bitcoin revenues in crypto itself and not change it all to tax currency. And generally, you have a better system because now you have less fees, generally less 1%, and basically you get the best of both worlds. You get the best of cash, which is that people own their money, and you get the best of a credit card system, which is that it's generally more secure, that you're not going to get robbed with it, right? And no chargebacks. So that's what generally, that's what we can move towards. What about our favorite competitor, right? What about payment networks, like second layer networks like Lightning? Well, let's go back to the gold analogy. Oh, something went backwards there. Sorry. Sorry. I don't know how I managed to jump back an entire slide. Okay. Okay. So gold, right? Gold originally had a scaling problem. You know what the scaling problem of real gold was? The fact that once people used it enough, it got really valuable. And then people, whoa, what happened again? Somebody's playing a trick. I'm not pressing the button. I'm not pressing the button. All right, I'm gonna skip by that problematic first one. All right. So people used it more, and they melted it into bricks, right? Once they melted into bricks, then banking industry was born, and then people basically vaulted those bricks. Now I'm pressing it, it's not working. There we go. People vaulted the bricks. Once they vaulted the bricks, this is like honest banking, because you wanted the bricks being safely kept. Once you vaulted your bricks, you got issued something that looked like this. There you go, a gold certificate. Basically says I deposited some bricks in there, and I can take it out whenever I want. Well, it turns out that people started trading these as money, as you all know, because it was just more convenient than taking out your bricks, handing it over to the other guy, him putting it back in the vault, and getting another certificate, right? That was just silly. So once the banks figured out that, hey, people are trading these certificates, they changed them. They issued dollars, which are backed in gold. The difference is subtle, but the difference, if you read closely, which you probably can't, payable to the bearer on demand as authorized by law. Before, it was just payable to whoever shows a certificate. Now, by authorized by law. What do you think happens when you make something that's payable only as authorized by law? 1932 or 1931, they prohibit it. So now it's no longer lawful. So now all of a sudden you don't have gold dollars backed by gold anymore. You just have dollars which the government will keep for you. They will keep the gold for you. You can't redeem it, but they can use your gold. But don't worry, the gold's still there. Then fast forward to 1971, the Nixon closes the gold window. Now dollars backed by not gold anymore because we don't know if we have the gold, so it's just backed by dollars itself, fiat backed by fiat. And now you have just basically paper backed by paper. And in 2005 or 2009, I remember, they added some new security features to the bills, and now you have trackable serial codes and all this kind of stuff in the name of safety. Soon you'll have microchips you can embed in a piece of paper. So who knows what's going to happen with this? But basically, we've seen all this before. If you start vaulting your asset, your money, and you start trading, the deposit certificates of them, I don't know maybe they will sort it out, but I'm not going to risk that with most of my money. So that's generally how we think the scalability problems of second layer networks are. So that pretty much summarizes the talk. So I just like to impress upon you the importance of retail acceptance, right? So as a retail merchant, what you should do is just start accepting Bitcoins and trade them 100% for your fiat tax currency if you don't want to take the risk. As you start collecting it, maybe some other merchants will take Bitcoins. Then, hey, maybe you can pay some of your costs and your fees in Bitcoins, in which case you should start saving more. Hey, if you can do that enough, then maybe you can start paying your employees in crypto and in Bitcoin. And when that happens, soon we'll just wake up one day, we won't even realize it, and we will have a global stateless currency, which is equitable all, regardless of race, religion, political, financial, or social status. Thank you.